Life Audio.
The Bible Study Podcast, episode 924. Today, the Bible Study Podcast continues a study of the Gospel of Luke with more from chapter 6 and starting into chapter 7. Welcome to the Bible Study Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. We're going to do more of Jesus' teaching from the Sermon on the Plain, but first a word from this sponsor. We pick up the story of the Sermon on the Plain with a small section here, a tree and its fruit. No good tree bears bad fruit, nor does a bad tree bear good fruit. Each tree is recognized by its own fruit. People do not pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. A good man brings good things out of the good stored up in his heart, and an evil man brings evil things out of the evil stored up in his heart. For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of. So this is really just a practical saying by Jesus, or a practical application that is wrapped up in this parable. So let's deal with what he's talking about. He's saying that if you listen to what I say, you can tell what my heart is full of. If I say words of hate, it's because my heart is full of hate. If I say words of love, then my heart is full of love. Right? That you can tell what I am thinking, in essence. You can tell what my character is by what fruit I produce. And this one specifically is talking about what I say, but it can be also what I do. Right? You can't say, well, he's a good man, but he does bad things, is basically what Jesus is saying. That a good man does good things and a bad man does bad things. A good man says good things and a bad man says bad things. So he says, you don't expect that when you walk up to a fruit tree that you're going to pick figs from thorn bushes or grapes from briars. It doesn't work that way. You pick figs from fig trees and thorns from thorn bushes, I guess. And so you can't claim to be one and do the other. And it's a useful thing for us to deal with. You know, I know we're not supposed to be judging people, but there are times we have to decide, for instance, who you're going to follow. And this would be good to know is, well, how do they behave? What do they say? How do they act? If their hearts are full of love, then out of their mouths and through their actions, I should see love. And again, remember, that's what we're called for. That's what we're called to be about, is love. And so if that is not what you're seeing in that particular teacher, that particular preacher, that particular political leader, then run away, because that is not the right direction for you. And then the wise and foolish builders. Why do you call me Lord, Lord, and do not do what I say? As for everyone who comes to me and hears my words and puts them into practice, I will show you what they are like. They are like a man building a house who dug down deep and laid the foundation on rock. When a flood came, the torrent struck that house, but could not shake it, because it was well built. But the one who hears my words and does not put them into practice is like a man who built a house on the ground without a foundation. The moment the torrent struck the house, it collapsed and its destruction was complete. I don't know how many of you have done construction or have watched construction being done. We did that. We bought a house back in 1987 here when we moved to San Jose, shortly, not that long after that. And later on, we had the opportunity to add on to the house. We added on a second floor to the house. And it's interesting, what they do is, you'd think if you're adding on a second floor that all of the work is going to be going up. But that's not what happens. What they do when you're adding on a second story to a house is, the first thing they do is they take off all the drywall, which is what is the outside of our house, and they put what they call shear wall, which is really just plywood, along the outside of the house. And then they also dug big trenches through the floor of our house so they could put in extra foundation, because if it's going to have more weight going up, it needs to have more strength going down. And Jesus is saying that if you're building a house that way, right, if the way you build a house is you start with, what is it resting on? What is it foundation? then he says a life should be built in a similar way. What is the foundation for your life? And, a good answer in a Bible study is, well, it should be Jesus. It should be God. Okay, but how do you build that foundation? Did you notice that the man who builds the house, who is successful, doesn't just build the house on rock? He didn't just find rock. He went and looked for rock. He dug down deep. Right? This was work. But that's what happens when you build a house. You want to make sure you're on good foundation. He went and he got a shovel and he dug down deep until he found rock, and he put his house on that. This isn't luck that happened here. That he was successful and that the other one failed is because of planning and wisdom. Now, the guy who built his house on the sand, well, that is not a good idea. The guy who built his house without a foundation, that house was doomed to failure. So when they added on to our house, one of the things they did is they said, in case of an earthquake, because I live in California, they said, we don't want your house to fall off its foundation. So the other thing they did is they drilled holes and put in great big bolts to bolt our house to the foundation so that we wouldn't lose connection. And in the same way, we are intended to be connected to our foundation that is Christ. We have to do the work, right? We have to go dig down deep sometimes so that we are anchoring all parts of our life on Christ. But we also have to just make sure that we stay connected, because the way that a house dies in a storm, in a hurricane, in an earthquake, the easiest way is if it falls off the foundation and then it's just rubble. Going into Luke 7, we've got a great story here. One of my favorite stories for Luke, although I say that so often, and that is the faith of the centurion. When Jesus had finished saying all this to the people who were listening, he entered Capernaum. There was there a centurion's servant, whom his master valued highly, was sick and about to die. The centurion heard of Jesus and sent some elders of the Jews to him, asking him to come and heal his servant. When they came to Jesus, they pleaded earnestly with him, "This man deserves to have you do this, because he loves our nation and has built our synagogue." So Jesus went with them. He was not far from the house where the centurion sent friends to say to him, "Lord, don't trouble yourself, for I do not deserve to have you come under my roof. That is why I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you, but say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I myself am a man under authority, with soldiers under me. I tell this one, go, and he goes, and that one, come, and he comes. I say to my servant, do this, and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him. And turning to the crowd following him, he said, "I tell you, I have not found such great faith even in Israel." Then the men who had been sent returned to the house and found the servant well. All sorts of cool things in this story. One is, so you've got a centurion. And centurion, the root of centurion is century, right? It's 100. So this is someone who is in charge of 100 men in the Roman army, about a tenth of a legion. In our army, that might be someone who is a captain to colonel. I'm not sure exactly the amount of men you'd need to be there, but an officer. And someone who is used to giving orders and used to receiving orders. And it's interesting, first of all, that most centurions who are sent to Israel, to Judah at this time by Rome, do not build synagogues. In fact, many of them are resentful of where they are, and no one would say of them, "This person loves our country." Right? So this man is already unusual in the sense that he is what would say a God-fearing person, meaning that he is not necessarily converted to Judaism, but he's close. And this is the only thing we ever hear about him. We don't get a name. We don't know if he is in any way related to any other centurion we ever hear about in the Bible. But we hear of this guy who is such an unusual occupying army officer that the Jewish leaders go and plead to Jesus on this man's behalf. So that's very unusual. And second is they're pleading for the health of a servant, someone who is hired by this centurion, the help. And so this centurion cares for this person who works for him in a way that is unusual. So that is the second thing that is unusual about this servant. And the third thing is, so Jesus is coming to heal the servant, and the centurion says, no. You shouldn't enter my house. I'm not worthy. So this is somebody who's in charge of 100 soldiers and yet is modest, right? Understands where he is compared to Jesus, sees Jesus for who he is, knows that he can heal, but doesn't feel worthy to have Jesus come into his house. This is an unusual man. And he says, just say the word. That's all you need to do. I know you don't need to be here. You don't need to lay your hands on my servant. I know that if you are willing, if you say the word, that he will be healed, because I understand authority. And Jesus, when he looks at him, he says, you have authority. Just say the word. And Jesus is amazed. We would do well to behave as this centurion behaves, with modesty, with understanding of the value of the people around us. How unusual this centurion, who his friends are pleading for him, the religious leaders are pleading on his behalf, and they're doing that because of the seeds that he has sown already through the life that he has been living. We should live like that. With that, we're going to end this episode of the Bible Study Podcast. If you have any questions, send an email to chris2x@gmail.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at thebiblestudypodcast.com. And thanks so much for listening. I want to take just a second to thank the team at Life Audio for their partnership with us on this podcast. If you go to lifeaudio.com, you'll find dozens of other faith-centered podcasts in their network. They've got shows about prayer, Bible study, parenting, and more.
Has fear stolen your peace? I'm Jennifer Slattery, lead host of the Faith Over Fear podcast, helping you fight your fears and grow your faith. Subscribe at lifeaudio.com.